death. There we go, we're live. Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined by Ian Conroy all the way from New Zealand, Liam Carrigan all the way from Japan. We might be talking football jerseys, so Liam has come prepared by the looks of it. And if we are joined by Lawrence Conley, we will welcome into the show late and we can all heckle in unison. Gentlemen, it's always an absolute pleasure. And here he comes, dialing in from the Skylark. It's Lawrence Conley. Just there we go. Great to see you, Big Ian. Brilliant to see the three of you, because obviously I was absent on the last Tuesday bulletin. There's loads to talk about, Ian, and I'm going to start with yourself, because the discussions I love having with you are around football, music and culture. Over the last 8 years, Acsom have basically from episode 1 said, this is what we're all about. And Celtic launch a new jersey. The world goes into meltdown on Twitter anyway, social media world, which isn't the real world, let's be honest. But what I'm going to say first and foremost, Ian, I love the fact that the club have embraced that whole football, terrace culture, music, whereby for me it all blends into one, and supporting Celtic can be about all of these things.
Yeah. I mean, it is about time, really, and I think I was just saying off camera there before, it was probably more Adidas that were sort of the driving force behind this rather than the club. But it's good to see, and obviously, you know, I mean, someone just put it on the group chat today, but I noticed the other day, Snoop Dogg was at the feature for the Swansea kit launch, wasn't he? You know, and it's an opportunity missed. So I hopefully this is the start of the club, maybe sort of coming up to date and embracing that and that kind of that you know, every facet of the club and the fans. You know, we're essentially a working class club. Our roots are firmly in the working class. I'm from a working class background. I'm sure all of us guys around the table are. And that sort of terrace culture, fashion, you know, music, it's synonymous with that kind of approach. So I'm all for it. I've seen the video once, so I'll let you go back and see it again. But see Bobby Gillespie, and it is great. And obviously the King of Kings in there as well. You know, taking the headphones from Bobby as well at some point, which is that kind of cross pollination, magnificent.
It is pretty iconic, that scene, I've got to say. I'm going to actually play the video for anybody that's not seen it, and I can't have the volume on for copyright reasons, but it is moving on up by Primal Scream. Bobby Gillespie makes an appearance in the video. You might be sitting there thinking, listen, there's more to talk about than a kit. We're going to launch. No, we're not going to launch anybody. We're going to launch this. We're going to use the launch of this kit to discuss other wider issues at the football club, because the reaction to it, the meltdown from it, obviously would show that there's a lot of fans saying, you know, all you're wanting us for is basically money. You're constantly coming to us and launching new things. Where's the players? That kind of thing. So we are going to start off with a kit launch. And by the way, before I go any further, it's magnificent, this video. I mean, listen, Celtic get a bashing, right, at all facets of the club. This video is absolutely brilliant. The only thing they did wrong is they didn't film it in the Skylark bar, which is synonymous with Celtic nights in, Lawrence. Have you got a pool table yet, mate? Could you have staged this?
I do have a pool table, mate. Yeah, Navy got me one for Christmas, but it's like 1.5 feet long, but I don't know. 3/4 of a foot wide. So yeah, choose about that length. So yeah.
Well, you know what? We could do it, right? And we'll invite the Wolf Tones, right? After Friday nights, this is Acsom. And we could do our own launch, right? We'll do it from the Skylark. I'm going to play this. As I say, this is not all about just talking about jerseys. There is a wider conversation to be had here, Liam. So on the one hand, let's give credit where it's due. This is a brilliant video, a fantastic launch. But I think the reaction tells a different story as to how the fans feel about the number of different launches that are happening. Now, the argument I've got is this. We're always banging on about acting like a big club or acting like a Champions League club. And I think when, was it Don Mackay was in, he was talking about being world-class in every single department, Liam, right? That's a world-class launch. That's how you launch a football kit. That's brilliant, right? Mm. And I think when it comes to merchandise and the variety of things that are available, that's what big clubs do. We need to take that on the chin. But the focus is on it because there's other aspects that are not being done to the same level. we're talking recruitment, we're talking fan engagement. And that's where the issue is, Liam, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, again, like you say, it's a very slick, very well put together video, but it takes me back to something I wrote, a couple of months ago about the club trying to kind of synthesize the working class fan culture that Ian's already alluded to. This idea that, you can take that culture, that history of Celtic, and kind of artificially recreate it, which is to me what that ad is trying to do, putting it in a pub and having, people having a pint and play, old classic players, whatever are there as you're launching a new kit. To me, it just kind of, it's like, we get what Celtic fans do, we get what Celtic fans look like, but when it comes to actually dealing with you, we have no idea what we're doing. That's kind of the impression I get from the Celtic board, unfortunately, and the Celtic commercial team, because this kit launch is just utterly tone deaf in terms of how fans are going to afford it, and also how much other stuff has already been launched in just in the last couple of months. I mean, we've had 3 kits, about 4 or 5 different merchandise drops, and far more merch than signings recently. Although I also wrote a piece today that I don't think it's kind of fair to link those two together because they're completely different departments of the club, but they speak to a wider problem in terms of communication.
Communication, engagement. I don't like using corporate terms, but it's a joined up approach, or lack of, Liam, isn't it, when it comes to these things? There are things that we're unhappy with at the football club. The football club, largely and over the piece, is very well run, and we absolutely accept that, and we give credit where it's due. But there's nothing wrong with pinpointing areas that the club can improve on. We will play a video at some point during the show. Bobby Gillespie makes an appearance, as does Brooke Combe, Rhiann Downey, friends of the show. Yeah, there we go. Charlie Mulgrew and John Collins. Johnny Collins still got it, by the way. That's what he says. And so does he, for the age of him. But that is basically what we link it into. We link it into, right, if you're going to behave like a big club when it comes to launching merch, and that's what happens with big clubs, let's act like a big club in the recruitment aspect of the transfer window. Let's act like a big club when it comes to fan engagement and things like that. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be returning to the away kit. And you can let us know your thoughts in the comments section. A lot of people saying, well, you know what, the worst memory I ever had in the 1990s was Henrik Larsson breaking his leg against Lyon, and he was wearing the kit that this is modelled on, and it's PTSD and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? We know what happened after that. It turned out all right. We're talking new signings as well. And I think it's only right to come to Ian here, because Ian was the one that put his neck on the chopping block probably a couple of months ago and said, sign Eddie. Bring Edouard back, and people are booing and hissing and all that kind of thing. The thing for me with the Edouard links, which we saw re-emerging last night, it might be lazy journalism, Ian. I don't know what the source or how credible the source is, to be fair. But the source that reported it on Twitter looked fairly credible. Celtic interested. I could see Brendan Rodgers being interested in this one, very much like the Kieran Tierney move. But financially, yeah, we could, but would we make it happen? Would we shell that kind of level of wages at Odsonne Edouard? Would we try and do a similar deal that we did for KT, who I think KT was on 60 odd grand a week? Is Edouard on a wee bit more at the moment at Crystal Palace? Is it a deal? Let's be realistic. Is it a deal that could be done, Ian?
I think it is, and I think it's a deal that we should go for. I think essentially it would be down to Edouard. His career stalled. The grass wasn't essentially greener on the other side when he's gone down to England. Started off pretty brightly at Crystal Palace, but he's not really giving the best account of himself for whatever reason. I don't know why it's not happened for him down there. But as we've said before, this could be the best time you'll ever play football at a club like Celtic. If you get it, you'll be adored if you put the effort in. If you put 100%.
I've seen what you did there. You'll be adored. We're talking about Eddie, absolutely, Ian. Yeah. Nice one.
It was a Freudian slip there, or a Freudian slip. But look, he could come up the road and redeem himself in the eyes of football. Really, get himself back on track. And again, that could propel him. It could be a sort of a catalyst for him to go and move on to bigger and better things, maybe abroad or something. I don't know. Come and do a season or two with us again, or just come and be at home and see out your career even, you know. But I'd love to see him come back. And I put it on the group chat the other day. Actually, if it was a choice between Dembele and Edouard, I would love to see Dembele come back, actually. But that's never going to happen because of the relationship with, how it ended with Brendan. But he was I think we needed Dembele more than an Edouard. But Edouard, I'd take him back all day long. And I think it's one of those things, just file it under mutually beneficial.
Well, that's an interesting thing, and there's nothing wrong with throwing these things out there. I did a similar thing yesterday, and where I said, right, Mikey Johnson, Palmer, Tillio, and Yang, of the four, who's the best winger for Celtic? Excuse me. And you've just done the exact same. If you could sign Edouard or Dembele, which one would it be? Let us know in the comments section, because it's an interesting take. Edouard, I don't know financially if we could do it, Liam. This is a big concern, but I remember the exact same concerns surrounding the original Kieran Tierney rumours.
Well, at the risk of repeating myself, I also wrote a piece about this today, and I don't think it's going to happen. The source is valid. He's a noted French football journalist who doesn't just post like speculation or whatever. He's also not a Fabrizio Romano type who starts rumours to try and make things happen. The journalist in question is the real deal, but what I would say is that we've already got one striker coming in. We're looking at other strikers as well. I don't see where Edouard fits into the equation there, and I just think it's that deal is run. That time has run its course. Edouard was a great player for Celtic, but as we can see from the comments, a lot of people are not easily forgetting the fact that he downed tools for about the last 6 months of his contract. And it's, I don't know if we'd be as happy to get him back as we are with getting Kieran Tierney back. And it would be probably more money to get Edouard back. The difference is Kieran Tierney took a massive pay cut because he's a Celtic man. Because,
true,
like any of us, I used the example in the article, right? If we were offered 70 grand a week to go and play for Real Sociedad, right? Or 40 grand a week to go and play for Celtic, we'd probably take the 40 grand a week because we want to be able to say we played for Celtic. And 40 grand a week is plenty of money anyway, right? If it's Edouard in that same situation, he's going to Real Sociedad. It's nothing personal. It's just that Celtic is not his primary motivation, whereas it is ours.
Speak for yourself, Liam.
The thing is, Liam, the best and most recent example of that is Nicholas Kuhn. Nicholas Kuhn left the football club, no emotional attachment whatsoever to us, even though he's had more success at Celtic than anywhere else in his career. He's probably had more love from the Celtic fans throughout that period. And he leaves without batting an eyelid, Lawrence, because this is modern football, and that's what these footballers do. It's a career. They're looking for the big bucks. They're looking for platforms, etc., etc. And Liam's right. Kieran Tierney comes back because he's Celtic through and through. Brendan Rodgers comes back not for exactly the same reasons, but he comes back because he's obviously born into Celtic, to use his words, but he had something to prove. You know, that he didn't leave under the best of circumstances and wanted to put that right. He's spoken about it. Jota, you know, you could argue that the wheels came off his career, but he hadn't left with any kind of bad blood whatsoever, Lawrence. People might be in the comments saying, look, move on, don't even talk about him, it's not happening, he's making too much money where he is. But, you know, in terms of getting your career back on track, Lawrence, you know, we managed to find some way of getting Jota back to the football club and Kieran Tierney, both on massive money elsewhere. If you could do it, would you do it, Lawrence? That's my question.
Listen, Brendan come back on his road to redemption. Hopefully, I think the degree he's kind of redeemed himself. But Edouard, when was his last good season? No, probably the season before he left us was his last good season. It's a long while ago. What kind of money he'd cut? You know, you need to cut down, do the same deal with this Kieran. Whether he'd be willing to do that or not, who knows? But I think, you know, there was an impression that he kind of lacked effort in his last season with us. He's not set the head of the light down there for Palace or any of the clubs he's been on loan for. You know what? Does he really have a future at top level? I'm not too sure. And the amount that we need to commit to paying him, you know, it's different from KT. KT, although he's had his injury problems, when you saw him playing for Arsenal, you could see he's at that level. But Edouard, when was the last time he was at a decent level? Putting a decent striking performance.
Yeah.
So the season before he left Celtic, it's a long time ago. I'm not too sure. I'd be looking at taking back. It's a big commitment in terms of wages for us. If it doesn't work out, and if you're spending them there, I'm sure we are going to spend some money. If you're spending them on him, it means you're not spending them elsewhere. So, yeah, for Eddie, I think it's too long since his last decent season. Yeah, that didn't worry with him. I wouldn't touch him. Dembele, though, if he would come back for 40 grand, I'd take Dembele. But
that ain't happening.
Yeah, it's not happening. But he's had a decent career with Celtic. Listen, some players get it, like Samaras and Krosias. Some players come and get it. But not every guy it signs for is a mercenary. And you could even argue some players in the past that have been brought up in supporting Celtic turned into mercenaries for money. One in particular. So it's not always about kind of being born and brought up supporting Celtic, as we know some players have kind of turned for the pound. Yeah. But for me, Edouard, too long since he's been decent. I think I'd spend the money elsewhere.
No, that's a fair point.
Sorry to jump in. He was back at the Player of the Year, wasn't he? The season before last, as a fan, and amongst it. So I don't know, and also as well, sort of the flip side of what you're saying, Lawrence.
Ian? Sorry, mate. Is that how we tap up players these days? Legally, just invite them to things like
it must be.
Foundation
Well, Dembele was back as well, wasn't he, on the pitch the season after he left, wasn't he, celebrating? Yep. He was up back as a fan as well. But the flip side, the flip side of that is, if he comes back, he's got something to prove as well, not just for himself, but for, in the eyes of the fans and that kind of stuff as well. Whether he would care or not, it's debatable, but there is a chance. Obviously, it's he knows the club, we know him, we know what he can do, and to get himself, even if it's just back in the shop window, it could be mutually beneficial.
I get that. I do get that. Listen, I've already said that I would absolutely take him back if we can make the deal happen. I get the concerns that that Lawrence talks about. When we look at odds in Edouard, and I need to look at the minutes because beyond that first season on loan when he comes in, most of his games were starts, but I would need to look at the minutes. But when you look at his season-on-season record here, it might be surprising actually to some. So when he comes in under Brendan Rodgers on loan, he scores 11 and 29. Many of those, as I said before, were substitute appearances. His first kind of fully fleshed season as a £9 million purchase, he scores 23 goals in 52 games, followed by 29 and 47, his most prolific season of his football career. But that season that we always go on about in terms of the COVID, and he missed games through COVID twice during that campaign, Lawrence. If I'm going to be totally fair on the player, he did have COVID twice during that campaign. He played 40 games and scores 22 goals. Now, if you compare that to his best ever season, 47 appearances, 29 goals, I would need to look at the minutes, I get that, but it's not a million miles off it. And that was a poor Celtic side up against all the other challenges that we've spoken about. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but he didn't.
He's got 1 and 2. 1 and 2 weeks. So
not a bad.
I like the numbers. Season. So that's kind of what Adam Eder had last season, about 1 and 2, isn't it?
A hard time as well, absolutely.
Yeah, it was about 1 and 2. So you're kind of going right, and he's got a hard time. So if that's your benchmark, I know we've not looked at minutes, but if that's your benchmark, we've got a £9 million striker hitting those benchmarks. That gets a bit of a hard time from some supporters and still something to be convinced on.
No, it does. But again, we need to bring in that caveat of COVID. It was a COVID season. The illness was there a couple of times for him, and everything else was just madness and chaos around about Edouard. So absolutely, we all become body language experts. Neil Lennon has hinted that there were several players. In fact, he's more than strongly hinted there were several players who didn't want to be there. And as Celtic fans, we say, well, who was it? It was all the guys that left the following season, wasn't it? It was Christie, it was Ayer, it was Edouard. So absolutely, I get it. I do get that. But in terms of his return, I thought it was decent in goals anyway. I'd need to look at his assists as well. Let us know in the comment section, how do you feel about these rumours? As Liam says, it is a decent, credible source. Whether or not, though, the agent of the player has thrown Celtic into the mix just to get people interested. We know what happens. Then who knows? James Devine, you're in, and you're on X. I actually like the new Celtic top, but I'm more concerned with who will fill them. That is it. That is the big topic of conversation today. Barry O'Sullivan loves the new away kit, but just seen the price, €147.95. Do you get a free season ticket with it? Disgraceful pricing from a club what has the poor at the heart of it. Again, massive influence by Adidas in terms of the pricing. But yeah, your point stands. I'm going to bring this in though. I just got this today. I love this. Right, got this from a good pal of mine. Now, the last club I was a member of was this Celtic Supporters Club. Remember these days, guys, that's definitely 70s or 80s. Going by the badge, probably 80s, where you get your wee membership wallet. And this was the Legele CSC before it became the Arthur McKenna. In fact, Arthur McKenna was probably still on the bus, the man who the CSC was named after during this particular period. This is old school, and this brings back the memories. Look at that. I'm not going to tell you whose it is, but it is a good pal of mine. Brilliant, isn't it?
Is it lefties?
No, I'm not giving you any clues, Lawrence Conley, but I know who you're on about. Yeah, good guy. This is memories for me, Ian. I used to keep this kind of stuff. Yeah, we've got to remember it's a working class game. And I was just talking to Ian before we came on about this whole football, terrace culture, the social aspect of it. And obviously this video that the club have done, it's basically a day in the life of an away day, isn't it? You know, you're on the bus, you're meeting up with your pals, you're going to the boozer, you're making your way up to the stadium and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's brilliantly done. But I was talking to someone just yesterday, Ian, where it was in terms of football culture and how music, for example, has affected football and football culture for decades. And they were talking about how back in the day, you know, where there was a lot of violence and hooliganism, not to be mistaken for what the ultras do, which is completely different. But back in the 80s, the hooligan movement and then the acid house movement happened. And football fans, like top boys from all the top firms, were all pals because of what they were consuming at the football changed. And that completely changed the terrace culture of that time, Ian. So it's not something that can be ignored, is it?
Not at all. And you look at, I mean, you can go as far back, I suppose, to like the Teddy Boys in the 50s. You know, that kind of the culture and the terraces. That was a part of each other. I was watching an interview with Johnny Marr as well, and he was saying, I can't remember what it was on now, but he was saying it was like, you know, in the 70s when he'd go and watch the football, there was guys dressed up as David Bowie, you know, looking like androgynous aliens, but they were going around knocking people out. You know, they were still, you know, rough as guts, you know, and kind of going out, and it's still part of that kind of hooligan culture. But we can't discount it, you know, like you were saying before. You know, there's like the drug of choice was a certain upper in the 80s, and then the acid house happened, and it was something entirely different, and everyone got all loved up. The acid house movement happened, and it was hand in glove, and obviously fashion as well is a massive part of it. I mean, you must be the same, you know. Go to the match, you check out people's gear, you know, and you think, oh, I've got to try and find that, you know, or whatever. And it's like it was great. I used to go and love people watching the games as well, and for as much as the football, you'd see some class clothes. So yeah, that's kind of my take.
Absolutely. I'm going to upload another photograph here just while you were talking in relation to Johnny Marr. Was it maybe Stick to Football with Gary Neville and Roy Keane?
It was stick to football.
Yeah, well, I'm going to share with you my favourite image of all time featuring Johnny Marr. Here it is. He always loved the hoops, Ian. He always loved Celtic. And there was a great interview actually in the Celtic View a few years back where he's talking about being a Celtic fan and how fans back in the day used to tie their scarves around their wrists. Now, that was before my time. I can't remember that, but that was... Lawrence, can you mind that? Where you used to tie your style? Yeah, is that right? Is that what they used to do back in the day?
Yeah.
What we're talking, 80s?
The scarf gaming,
70s,
70s, yeah.
Brilliant. That was before my time, thankfully. Not that long before my time. But we're talking about signing players. Do you want to be adored or not? Let us know in the comment section. We're also hearing, Liam, about a certain James McCarthy Mark II, who is Quan, could well be leaving the building for 200 grand. Talk about a punt. And obviously yesterday we spoke about his compatriot. We spoke about Yang yesterday and the fact that he might be on the move to Legia Warsaw or Norwich. You take the money for both players, in my view. What's your view, Liam?
Well, my biggest regret about Kwon was reading the story yesterday, and another site had used the line going, Kwon, and I really wish I'd used that headline.
Good, I love it.
But no, look, the thing is, you're going to, if you're going to turn, close to 15 million profit on a player like Kuhn, occasionally you're going to lose £500,000 on a player like Kwon. It happens. Not every player is going to be a massive profit for you, but that's the risk you take. Speculate to accumulate, and now Kwon will go somewhere else and hopefully be successful, because I think credit to him for not just taking the easy option and going back to Korea, right? That would be the easy option. But he clearly wants to stay in Europe. Austria, Vienna are the club that are apparently most interested in him, and I really think he, it shows character that he's doing that. I mean, Kobayashi was another one, right? Didn't cut it at Celtic, went away to Portugal and did well there, and has now got a move back to a top flight club in Poland. So he is building a career for himself in European football at a certain level because he didn't give up. And whether you think he was good enough to play for Celtic or not, you've got to respect the guy's character for doing that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And when we're talking about acquisitions, etc., it's a massive talking point on the back. This is why we're tying it all into the jersey launch, because I saw last night there was a wee teaser. It was a pool ball, the number 7, and online it went into meltdown, Lawrence, right? So here's my take on it, and this is just the way I view it. I think you've got to, if you're taking the club to a level that you want to be a Champions League football club, there's so many different facets to that, and only one of them is the merchandise. And I think we do the merchandise really, really well. Yes, the point about the pricing is an absolute valid point. I mean, they're very, very expensive. But I says to you this morning, Lawrence, I've got over there in a pile, I've got Celtic catalogues for the 90s and the noughties. And we've always done loads and loads of ranges, but we didn't launch them like this. And they weren't as expensive as this. But I think we're doing the merchandise well. The issue is everything else in terms of the fan reaction to that would suggest that there's a lot of supporters out there who are just basically saying, where's the players? We're giving you our money. Where's the comeback from this?
What I don't know relatively where they is expensive. I can remember being me and my brother Eamon, parents couldn't get the Celtic strips then, didn't have enough money. So I'm not too sure what the relative expense is. It definitely feels as if we've expanded the number of jerseys out there, but with legit ads, I think I put it in the group, what's a Celtic jersey if it's not worn by Celtic playing football? So, yeah, but we do brilliant. The merchandise side, they're definitely making a lot of money out of it. Hopefully we start spending some of it on players soon and get some more signings in. Kwon, I think he's just one of those guys. He's same with Yang. They've been in a couple of years. Yang kicked on a wee bit after the Wraith Rovers game. I think we've seen enough. Move them on, take the money, give someone else a try. It might be players at that level coming in again, saying, look, they're squad players, they're fillers, but you never know. Every now and again, you might bring in a squad player that turns out to be absolutely cracking, like Frimpong. We brought him in for very little money. But would we sell him for a living? Have we got a sell on in him this year as well?
Yeah, 5 or 6 million on the sell on. Yep. Absolutely. So, no, you're right. Again,
I'd move those two.
Lawrence, I think there might be a wee delay with your with the Skylark. Obviously, somebody's been messing about with your Wi-Fi on one of their lock-ins. But we'll bring in some of the comments coming in as well. Barry O'Sullivan, you've already mentioned the price, and I think you're right in relation to that. But I think at the same time, if you want to get a big kit supplier, you really are over a barrel when it comes to the pricing aspect of that. Bob, you're in as well. You're on the YouTube. Shekelberg. We're talking shekels today, aren't we? Johnny Marr, superb guitarist who made the Smiths. Listen, we're not going to turn this into a music discussion, but you cannot, regardless of his politics, remove Morrissey from the history books when it comes to the brilliance of the Smiths. Bob, come on. We've also got David Stalker. Rodgers doesn't care. He's off after this season. If I was Rodgers, I would leave now because the board don't care. He's not going to do that, David, because he is here to repair his legacy. That's one of the things he's here to do, and he's here for more success, isn't he? Rob Lilly, PJD, I'd be a mod apparently. Liam, you would be a raver with glow sticks. I can see that. I'm happy with that.
I was sitting in my house playing FIFA while the whole rave thing was going on. I was 12.
See this from the Urban Culture. I've got a book up there, the Jungle Tales book. You'll remember. I think it came out just after the Jungle's last stand, and it was all the tales from fans who had gone to the jungle over the years. Brilliant, great concept. Actually, I'm not actually off the top of my head sure who wrote it, but it's up there somewhere. But what I've heard since then, because obviously there's a romanticism about going to the football and all the rest of it, and I talk about my memories, and it's all very, it's like golden hued memories. I never saw any violence. I never saw any boxing or whatever, but I've spoken to a lot of Celtic fans who've said that, it was prevalent. It was prevalent. I didn't go in the 70s, of course. Urban Culture is talking about the 70s being mental for gang fights in the Celtic end. I've also heard that various gangs from various parts of Glasgow used to stand in their wee spots in the jungle, and sometimes it would kick off as well. Again, this is maybe before your time, guys. Have you heard of that, Ian or Lawrence? Liam, you're too young.
I've heard of it, not seen it, but I think the standing in your own spot was right. You go and meet your mate, because you can't, you've got a season booked for a particular seat now. You can't sit with your pals. You kind of go to the pub beforehand, and you all split up for during the game, and maybe that's what's killed the atmosphere a bit. Whereas before you went and you met your pals at the game, not necessarily before, but you could go and where you'd meet them, whatever barrier you normally stood by or whatever. So I've heard the stories of the fights. Never saw mass fights. I've seen the odd guys kind of fighting in the pie stall or something, but that's it, mate.
Was that when you were a taster?
No, I think that's why I was brought in, mate, to make sure the quarter pie kind of went up a level.
Absolutely. By the way, that's not a dig at Lawrence. He was an official Celtic pie taster. Am I right, Lawrence?
That's correct. Me, a few others. My good mate Kenny Harkin also done it. Didn't take
I've only ever been in one fight in a football ground, and it was at an Oasis concert. So there you go.
Is that right?
Aye, at Hampden. Yeah.
Well, that's yes, mate. Sorry, on you go, Ian.
So Lawrence, just on the pies, was there pies that tasted worse than the ones that you actually passed off?
Well, yeah, there's got to be a winner, mate. There's got to be a winner, hasn't there? There was loads of different types of pies. This was before the Corey Rig Rose and Amy's, pushing the kebab pie before those days. It was like meat and potato, steak, and mince pie. So you had your three basic pies, and I think there was like 6 suppliers. A lot of pies had to be eaten that night.
Meat and totty every day of the week. It's like a meal in a pie. It's a meal in a pie, absolutely. So do you prefer the hard crust, Lawrence, or you're more for a wee bit kind of like soft crust?
So you had to think about it, this is back in the day, you had to think about throwability as well. The way we were talking about players.
Was that one of the criteria? Throwability, I love it.
Well, I think that's one of the pie tasters added, because we were thinking about guys that are brought up like Celtic fans and then turned their back for money. So we're thinking, right, you've got to think, this hold together.
Right, so you were gearing towards the return of the petite merde.
I tell you what,
how much damage can we do here?
Another one on the pie thing, you're saying about the robustness of it. My brother, he should be in jail for this. I think apparently it's a thing. You put a pie inside a buttered baguette.
A rolled pie. I've had a rolled pie before, but not adding a baguette.
And a baguette, mashed into a baguette. I've got acid reflux just thinking about it.
This talking about acid reflux, this conversation is taking quite an interesting turn. Liam, are you going to write a blog on this? Right, here we go. I love it.
Pies, Oasis, and Square goes.
Absolutely. Talking, you brought Oasis up. I didn't. You brought them up. Listen, if Liam and Noel can get back together, so can Brendan and Dembele. I was a hippie until 1980, says Les Watts. Okay, I was never a hippie. Plunge McNugget. Edouard wasn't good enough for the EPL. He's our level. Listen, I think there's a lot to be said in that comment, because there's a footballer there at 27 years of age who, I remember when Celtic signed him, let's not forget, we signed him for the PSG Academy. He's a guy that's went through every age group of French football at international level. And I think he held a record, actually, at one point as a goal scorer for the under-21s. So he was a bit of a prodigy at some point in his career. Celtic were part of that trajectory, and then the wheels have came off. So sometimes that's when a player is gettable for Celtic. You know, if he goes to Crystal Palace and he continues that good early form, we never see him again. We never see him again. He doesn't give us another thought. That's not what the way that his career's gone plunging. You're absolutely right there. So we'll see how it goes. EMC 1888. Yeah, hooliganism didn't start in the 80s. Absolutely. It was prevalent big time in the 80s. Spot on, Ian. The casual culture always gets the blame. Hooligans and football go hand in hand. It's tribalism. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Paul Bosas is coming in. My grandfather might have been in that supporters club, Logelly. He was a Fife minor and Celtic daft. Mum was born in Lahore. Or Lahore. You can call it Lahore if you want. Rob Lilly. That's just the Fife twang, by the way. Double D got to be a teddy boy. When will we see Double D? Will he be back this week? Hopefully he will. Maybe I absolutely done him tight last week. He was on the show every other day. He's maybe needing a wee rest. Alpha 0964. Tilios Hart is in Australia, not Scotland. It looks like it. It does look like it. He might well go back there. Mikey Moynihan, you're in as well. What about this lad, Nazinho? Good point. Getting us from pie tasting to new recruits from Cercle Bruges. And this is a player who would be coming in as Kieran Tierney's backup. And I think that, you know, when we're talking about recruitment windows, if I was to look at last season's summer window, Ian, yeah, we can argue the toss about whether or not the three big money buys were a success or otherwise. Lawrence has already mentioned Adam Ida. But in terms of going out there and making a statement in a transfer window and then making progress in the Champions League, nobody can complain or disagree with that. We certainly did that. We bought 3 players for 26 million quid and we progressed in the Champions League. Coming into this window, in my mind, I'm thinking more of the same. Now, you're not only going to buy those 3 players, you are going to have to bring in punts like Inamura, who might come good, and third choice goalkeepers and all that, and we're doing that. At the moment, the one guy that might surprise everybody for 1.7 is Nygren. Kieran Tierney is in that mould. He's that big, high-profile, quality signing that's going to improve your starting 11 for the Champions League. And there's nothing stopping us from bringing in another 2 in. So all the gnashing of teeth and the meltdowns online and all that, 2 big-name players silences all that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think I said this, must have been maybe a year or maybe even 2 years ago, and I think it was last Friday, Jim Orr echoed a similar thing whereby what I was saying was our team or any club, if you're trying to grow and progress, it's an evolution. So ultimately, your best player at a given moment could become, in a certain period of time, becomes your weakest or your worst because you've improved the quality. So therefore, I think like the time I said it first, Carter Vickers was probably your best player, or Jota. So you want to be getting to the point where actually they're on the bench, and you've got, because you've bought well, you spent some more money, and it's gone well, and they've kind of upped the level. But the money we spent on Ida and Engels, I applaud it. I think they're both great players, but I think they're part of the jigsaw. The jigsaw isn't finished yet. So I hope the board don't sort of think, you know, because they haven't been this roaring success that they probably think it should be guaranteed with that kind of outlay. That they put the brakes on and start going to sort of the 5, 4, 3 million type players again, because we've pushed the envelope. Brendan's pushed the envelope. We've done we did pretty well in Europe. You know, the draw was pretty favourable, but we still had to go out and do it. Let's more of the same, like you say, more 2 or 3 players of a similar quality combined with those ones that came in last season, and I think that's just, you know, it's given us the best opportunity to go and really succeed.
It's a great point, actually, Ian, because we touched on it very briefly yesterday. Steve McGowan wrote an article saying that Celtic were suffering from buyer's remorse. Lawrence, how do you think last season's... Listen, let's take it 2 seasons back, and I know there was a comment last night. Why do you keep banging on about the summer transfer window when Rodgers came in? Because there was a reactionary transfer window to that. So there was a reaction to the poor transfer window 2 summers ago, and that was last summer. What's the reaction this summer? Is it buyer's remorse where we go back, we recede further back into that hedge, Lawrence, and we play it safe? Is it a cautionary transfer window, or are we bold again?
I don't know where the buyer's remorse comes from. I mean, you talked about Eddie having a good season, and then I said, well, look, that's a similar number as Adam Ida. And I think he's got a good bit of growth left him in Adam. But Engels had a cracking season. So, if I'm in Celtic, I wouldn't have remorse about either of those. I'd worry about how long we can hold on to Engels. That's probably the biggest worry. I suppose it's trying to put the team together. Thought Doohan was a good piece of business. He's club trained. We lost Bain, who was league trained. So I think Celtic will expect 5 or 6 or match day first team squad players to come in. We changed that many. We more or less play 16 every home game. I'd say Negrin and KT are 2 of those. I think there's another 3 or 4 to come in at that level. But there's a balance in that to be done as well. Where are you bringing them in midfield? I think Engels and Bernardo need minutes. The young players, they're needing minutes. We've easily got, I think, we've got Doohan, Tony Ralston, KT, Jamesy Forrest, Calmac would make up your club trained. And it looks like Dane Murray's going to get a run. So that would be 6 club trained. You're only needing 4 league trained. Well, you've got Luke McCowan as one of them. Leaves 3 spaces. That's probably going to be for the likes of Turley and Mercado, etc. to come through for your European squad. Are we going to buy any more league trained players? I know there's been talk of Lennon Miller for a while, but I just think that midfield will be really crowded to have 3 young players in that are all needing minutes. Might get him in. Who knows? If you buy him, it might be a player you're buying that's going to be there for the next 10 years. Kind of Scott Brown style signing. But we're halfway through July. I think most clubs now will be back doing their pre-season. I think players will start to become available who maybe weren't available. And
Right.
start to see his kick in over the next couple of weeks on signing.
Lawrence, listen, you've made a brilliant point here, and I'm going to tie it into a comment because our Willie Napier, 4 of you sitting thinking everything is rosy, why not call the board out and ask why they're not backing the manager? Right, I'm going to ask you the question, old Willie. Did they back the manager last summer? Because if the answer's yes, I'm just going to point something out to you, right? Adam Ida was signed on the 14th of August. Arnie Engels was signed on the 30th of August. And Austin Trusty was signed on the 30th of August. So this goes back to the point Lawrence has just made. Look, we're frustrated. We want instant players, as soon as that window opens and all the rest of it. But if you were happy that the manager was back last season, Lawrence, right? And I think most of us, regardless of what you think of the players, he was back last summer. Those players didn't come in until the middle and the end of August.
It's like getting your wages on a Friday when it used to be weekly paid. You don't go to the pub and spend them all on a Friday night. You've got a week to get through. You never know what might be out there on a Saturday or a Sunday when you're getting out. So, yeah, I think they've backed Brandon to a decent level last season. The 2 big spends, I think, has been a success. I don't think the performances of them would put them off. We know we leave things late. And I think part of that's just the nature of football. Certain players will be told or surplus to requirements down south, then become available maybe first week in August. Maybe they weren't available at the end of June. So I think it's just where we sit. A lot of the times we're looking for players. I mean, you've touched on Edouard, players like that who've lost their way down south that we could maybe rehabilitate.
By the way, I don't have an issue with that. The incubation period of bringing a player back, even if it's somebody like Jota, who the move didn't happen well enough for him, and we bring him back and we try and build him up. Obviously, he's had that injury. And yesterday we discussed the fact he's going to be out until 2026, according to Brendan Rodgers. So there's an issue on the wing, but we're going to be talking about the left back we have been linked with as well. I'm going to ask you 3 of these then, and this is just us 4 sitting here. Those 3 big buys, right? Because I just think you buy at that level every summer at least, and you do what you need to do in January, you're going to progress as a Champions League club. That because you're improving the quality of the side. They're all pieces of the jigsaw, if you like. If you were to take the 3 of them, Ian, Trusty, Ida, and Engels, do the 3 of them right now, as we're sitting here, get into your starting 11?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
You do the first team. Yeah. All 3 of them. In my view, I'm exactly the same. A lot of people disagree and say Scales should play over Trusty. What's your take on this, Liam? Would you play those 3 big buys right now, starting 11? Wednesday night, if we're playing our strongest team?
Trusty's the only one I'd not be sure about. The other two, if we had to, I would play them. But with Ita, that would be on the proviso that we don't have anybody else, and we know that Yamada is coming in, within a day or two. I mean, Yamada has just passed the milestone that every great Japanese Celtic striker has to. That's the second game in a row he's been left on the bench for Japan. So,
absolutely.
Japan have just beaten Korea 1-0, and Yamada did not come on at any point. He was on the bench.
2 unused substitute appearances on the bounce.
Yes. Literally just after he announced it became kind of semi-official he was going to Celtic. Like, he played last Monday, and that was then the story broke kind of Tuesday or Wednesday. It was like, since then he's not played.
That gaffer doesn't like us much. He doesn't like us much, does he?
Is definitely a blue nose, I think.
I think you're right.
But just to go back a wee minute, just to a point that Willie in the comments raised there, I'm not happy with this board at all. Right? If I give off that impression, then I apologise. But I am not happy with them at all. I'm not happy with their greed. I'm not happy with the constant begging for money off of the fans. Buy this, buy that. Pay for a ticket for this, pay for a ticket for that. Stuff that used to be included on the season book. And I am not happy at the complete risk averseness of our transfer policy. Now, I think we will sign a few players, as Lawrence said. I think we could sign as much as 4 or 5 new players who will be first team ready between now and the end of August. But again, we could have got players of that caliber already if we just put the money up. However, we should not be drawn into overpaying for players like that boy from Rapid Vienna last week. There's no way he's ever worth 9 million. I agree with the club on that. But no, we should get the finger out. We've got the money, and we paid, what was it, about 7 million quid in tax. Bit of an alien concept, I know, to any Rangers fans who might be listening, but we paid 7 million in tax, I think it was, to HMRC this year. And that's money that has just, because it was just sitting in the bank doing nothing, we got taxed on it. Mm-hmm. We are literally losing money because of our risk averseness.
No, you're right. And it's year on year, because we've done the sums in relation to that, didn't we? Spend the money rather than... But to the point, absolutely to a point. And again, when we're at this stage of the transfer window and everybody wants us to go out and buy the players, you could get into a situation whereby you end up overpaying. And then for the season afterwards, the big discussion is we pay too much for this player or we pay too much for that one. Would all three of them get to your starting 11? Lawrence, have you got asked to select Celtic starting 11 for Sporting Lisbon for our next game, and it's got to be the strongest starting 11, would all of those 3 guys get in it?
I change it, mate. They'd be in they'd either be playing or on the bench, and I think that's what we need. People that's improving the matchday squad, and they'll get minutes. I think unless we sign a big striker, we'll probably stick with Maida through the middle. I know Liam's dying for that to happen, but gives us problems on the wings. Kuhn's gone and Jota's out for a while, and then if Maida goes through the middle, we really need to get wingers in. Trustees is the one I'm still to be convinced about. Is he better than Scales? Scales looks to be doing what Taylor done for long enough and seeing off all comers to his position. We brought in Nat Phillips. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wasn't the best move. Definitely back to managing that one, manager's choice, but was it choice? And Trusty, he's yet to convince me. But yeah, Engels would start. I think the other 2 would be on the bench for me. That's the proviso that Maida. I think the manager will start the Maida through the middle. I wouldn't have any issue with Maida starting through the middle, but
it caused, like you say, it does cause us problems on the wings, particularly when we know that beyond Maida. In terms of wingers, we've lost Kuhn, right? So he's gone. Yang and Tillio, there's interest in both players. We discussed that yesterday. Tillio might be going back to Australia, and Yang, there's interest. And he's interested himself in leaving. So they 2 guys might not be part of the equation. And then you ask yourself, what have you got left? So we were talking about that yesterday. You've got Palma, who hasn't even travelled to Portugal. You've got Jamesy Forrest, most decorated player in the club's history, but he's 34 now. You would maybe guess that he's going to have less game time this season than he did last. So yeah, it does definitely cause an issue. Jota's got that long-term injury. But going back to the point Liam made about being like bored, happy clappers, no, I don't think so. I mean, the big issues that I constantly certainly raise on here are player recruitment. the fact that, it's, for me, it's not that joined up. It's the Paul Tisdale show at the moment, apparently, but nobody knows what that show entails, because moving into the next thing, there's a lack of engagement and communication to the supporters who fund the football club through the purchase of season tickets, merchandise, Celtic TV, and anything else Celtic related. I'm unhappy with the youth development aspect of the football club. Talk about it all the time. I've yet to do the workings myself, but I will do it. How many Celtic graduates in the last 20 years have come out of our own academy and played 50 or more games for Celtic? I'd love to know that stat. I think it will be startling. I think that after looking at that stat, you'll say, why are the people in jobs at the top of the academy still in jobs? Because they're not doing the job properly. And then people will back that up and say, well, it's a Scottish-wide issue. Celtic are fighting against thunder when it comes to youth development. No, we should do better. Then you say, well, perhaps the development of Barrafields is going to improve that. I hope it does. Stadium redevelopment, criticise the board constantly for that. I don't think it's been good enough. There was a bit of a revelation for me, Ian. Don't know if you've had time, mate. I know you watch a lot of the things back. I don't know if you've had time to watch the Tom Grant. There was a wee mention this morning about it. And one of the revelations that I found really interesting was it was about get the stadium done, get it built, the breeze blocks, all this, that, and other. And we'll come back to the aesthetics later. And we just never did. So when you're in the concourses and when you're walking down Genfield Street, it's still as is. That I know that there's been a wee bit, particularly on the kind of kids zone and all that kind of stuff. And there's been some stuff that the fans have done. Everywhere you look, every brick should be celebrating Celtic's history. But it was interesting how Tom Grant said, oh, that was the plan. That was the kind of phase 2 plan. 30 years later, we've still not done it. I found that something of a revelation from Tom.
Yeah, me too. Well, maybe not so much a revelation, more of a kind of a realization, but
confirmation.
Yeah, confirmation, and it's like we've talked about it many times. You talked about the murals, the idea for the murals and things like that. I think it'd be an amazing idea. But if you look at the area's been sort of regenerated. We've got the Emirates facility across the road. That was for the Commonwealth Games, wasn't it? The Barras, I've not been to the Barras for a good number of years. I've been back here 6 years now, but that's been regenerated. That's there's sort of various bits and pieces happening there. But you imagine if the club invested in the stadium, other businesses would be tempted to sort of maybe come and open businesses as well. Look at Finiston, not that far away, when the hydro was built. I think it happened too quickly. Personally, it wasn't very organic, but still, it's created a whole new scene down in Finiston. And it was always thriving. It was before I left. So that a similar thing could happen at Celtic. But I said it in the group chat before, and I firmly believe this. Surely, they want to future-proof. They want to have it'll be their names on it. They were the people responsible for the regeneration of the stadium that sees into the next 50 years. It's a legacy that they're leaving behind. And if it was me, it was easy for me to say I'm not. It's not my neck on the block. But if it was me, really sort of looking at it, I'd love it for my name to be associated with that legacy of going and we built the stadium. We did the new stand. We upgraded the stadium, and it's now best in class, like Don Mackay was saying.
The thing is, Ian, I think that they are sitting there and their legacy is all the trophies. Remember that comment I made about, how many trophies has Celtic won since I've been a major shareholder? That was what Dermot Desmond said to that reporter who finally tracked him down. He couldn't answer it, so he didn't get the interview. But I said earlier on in the show, just before we wrap all this up, some great comments, by the way. I'm going to bring a few more of those in. But just in case you haven't seen this video, I'm going to share that as well, so you can watch it. I'm going to have to do it with the volume down, unfortunately, but the soundtrack is Primal Scream. I'm going to share it so you can all watch it and make up your own mind in relation to that. And there's just a wee bit of jiggery pokery I need to do at this end, so here we go. Can you guys still hear me talking over this?
Yeah, still hear me.
So it is hail. There's the man. It's an away day. There's Jan Downey, who appeared on Acsom a few years ago. And it's all about obviously going back to the 90s because the kit has been modelled on that particular jersey that Henrik Larsson, of course, wore as well. It was worn for 2 seasons back then, actually. So this is trying to get the kind of the culture of an away day. You're having your supper, what takes your fancy. It might be a pie supper, actually, Lawrence. And then they're in McCool's, and it's Henrik and the boys. There's John Collins, Charlie Mulgrew, and who's on the decks? There's the man. Oh, there's the man. It's Bobby Gillespie. There's an iconic moment where he passes the headphones to Henrik. It's unbelievable, by the way. Watch this. There's Brooke Combe. I don't know if she's behind the bar, pulling pints. There you go. Henrik takes the headphones, and it's a great bit of work. For me, it's a great bit of work. And we spoke about it at the top of the show. I know a lot of people are saying, why are you even interested? Buy players. My argument here is do both. Be brilliant at the merch and be brilliant at buying players and be brilliant also at youth development and have a brilliant stadium and be brilliant at communicating with your football supporters. Ian, that's all doable, isn't it?
Of course it is. Look at our reach. You know, look, that hopefully is a sign of things to come, like I said earlier on. We miss a trick in lots of stuff, and we've said that, and you know, with the thing with Snoop Dogg, and you know, not wanting just to be around to do the halftime draw, actually to utilise these people who are fans of the club, who've got global reach and global standing in the arts, you know, music and everything else. So, it's one-upmanship as well to your rivals. It's one-upmanship. You know, there's you've got the kind of those people on Twitter and stuff like that, the fans of the EPL calling Scotland a farmers' league and a backwater and all that kind of stuff, and that kind of imperialistic attitude that the English media really have, but it filters down into the general public. So it's kind of one in the eye for them as well. You know, having that kind of appeal in a launch like this, and having the people, the cool cats that sort of associate and support Celtic, you know, shouting from the rooftops about it.
Thing is, Ian, if Rangers did it, you'd have Marty Pello playing pool. And who'd be on the decks? The Lotto Lout, remember him? He was a Rangers fan.
The only cool one they've got is Van Morrison, isn't they?
Is he cool? He's no cool anymore.
He just is, I don't know, mate. He's just been a line through his name. He's off the list now.
He's off the list.
You'd have John Brown banging on the window of the pub, screaming, "Show me the title deeds."
Show me the deeds. Yeah. Come on, somebody get on the AI. Let's see the Rangers version of that video. John.
But it's great they're using McCool's though, eh? And great McCool survived COVID. You know, Nicky went a cracking puppy. Nicky was in the video. Hopefully.
Nicky, you see him? You see him in the video?
Yes.
Aye. Brilliant. One of our first gigs was down there, remember, with Brian McClare?
Oh, with Chalky. Remember, with Chalky in?
Yeah. That was a great day. John McDibble, Yang and Forrest on the right doesn't fill me with confidence for a full season, nor does it I. And I remember signing Nygren and looking at the fact that, you know, he was listed as a right winger, but he's played a lot of his football in the centre. And from what we've seen from his brief debut, 45 minutes, it looks as though we're going to utilise him more centrally. So, no, it doesn't fill me with any kind of confidence either, John. I'm going to be honest. Henrik McLarsson, a few words from Tisdale would put a lot of minds at rest, but no, nothing. Content is king in this day and age. Do a big in-depth interview with him. Why not? We've also got JJ McGarvey, a big name equals Vinegar of Hesselink. Junior. Yeah, absolutely. Mo Shislak, PJD. Loft must be teeming with all sorts of junk. Yes. Every time I drive into my street, Mo, I look at the house just to see if there's any subsidence. There's that much junk up there. And we've also got Chill Pill. Nazinho looks like a unit. He'd be a good backup for sure. Yeah, absolutely. 21, Flavio Nazinho, 21 years of age. Currently,
is it just me though, or does Flavio Nazinho kind of sound like a hooligan faction that Paolo Di Canio would be a member of?
Flavio Nazinho, yeah. What does that mean? What does it mean? Absolutely. And Liam Devine, players who are not ready to play Champions League are nice, but they're not part of the consideration for me. I want CL players, ready players rather. We've lost one in Kuhn, we've signed none, held back by the same old crap, says Liam. I think we've signed KT, obviously different position, Liam. But yeah, I absolutely get that. One out, one in. And if we want to improve, we need more in than out. Absolutely. And that's where we're at, I think. And if we do get another couple in, albeit it might be later in the window for the reasons Lawrence has already described, I do think we're stronger. And we still need to get rid of a lot of bodies who are non-contributors, and that's happening as well, which I think is good to see. Listen, it's been a very, very action-packed hour. We've talked everything from pies to Marty Pello playing pool in Oswald's Bar in Glasgow. So that's just the way the conversation goes. And I've even got a chance to ask Liam what jersey that is you're wearing, Liam. So I'm going to give you the last word, mate. What is that?
It's the Germany away shirt from last year's Euros. Yeah, just I literally, about 10 minutes before the show, I said to the wife, I said, right, what colour jersey do you want me to wear today? And she's like, anything pink or purple. So this was the first one I could find.
Good choice, Liam. Everybody, thank you all for supporting what we do. Give us a big thumbs up on the YouTube video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It's all free. But if you do want to come to see us live, we are going to be with another member of the Primal Screen, Manny, big Celtic fan. We're going to be talking football, music and culture at Barra's Art and Design on the 17th of August. Ticket link under the video. Thank you all for joining me. And join us again tomorrow at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.